Merry Christmas and welcome to Really Random Rants, the show where we do just that. I'm Tim and today I'm going to be talking about a shared universe you've probably never heard of. That's right, this is the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and other holiday specials shared universe. Name to be determined sometime in this video. So, without further ado, let's start the intro and get started.
Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
So I'm all sure you've seen Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the famous holiday special that comes on about, once to 5 million times every Christmas. But did you know it had a sequel? And another sequel? And technically that non-canon sequel from years later, which was in CGI animation. The point is, this movie had two sequels that most people didn't even know existed. Not to mention, it also connects to Frosty the Snowman, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Jack Frost, and many, many other. Now, just like every shared universe, this one has some of its continuity issues, but I'm not going to really mention those in this video. If you want to find them out, look at the links in the description for the sources of this video. They go in depth on some of the inconsistencies. But anyway, what really starts this universe off is Nestor the Long-Eared Christmas Donkey. Now this technically isn't the first one they made. The first one they made was Rudolph, which we all know and love, which is why I'm calling this the Rudolph, the Red-Nosed Reindeer shared universe. But anyway, this one's sort of a cross between Rudolph and Dumbo, and it tells the story of a donkey with unusually long ears, that will be important later, who is laughed at, but ends up being a part of the Christmas in Bethlehem. He's also an ancestor to Santa Claus's donkey, the narrator of the story. So this one takes place at the birth of baby Jesus. While this is happening, we have the Little Drummer Boy and the Little Drummer Boy Book 2, which I'm sure you never knew even existed. I literally found out about it about 2 days ago. So those are happening around the same time as this Nestor the Long-Eared Christmas Donkey. The next movie would be Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I'm sure you've all seen this one before. It's the origin of the friendly version of Santa Claus. We learn that young Claus was an orphan raised by the Kringle elves who teach him how to make toys. He meets a school teacher named Jessica, the future Mrs. Claus, who he marries in the forest after they become outlaws. He also meets the Winter Warlock, who gives him magic feed corn that allows reindeer to fly. The next movie in the list is Jack Frost. This tells the story of a sprite named Jack Frost. He's a member of a team of immortal creatures who help create winter. Jack is curious about the human world and falls in love with a mortal woman. He begs Father Winter, who's his boss, to temporarily turn him into flesh and blood so he can try to win the girl's heart. While on Earth, he helps to overthrow a ruthless tyrant named Kubla Cross and his clockwork knights. Now, what's interesting about this movie is Jack Frost is displayed as this happy-go-lucky guy, but later, spoiler alert, he comes back in a Frosty the Snowman movie. He's displayed as the bad guy there, so I'm not sure why they changed his character. Maybe it's just one of those inconsistencies in their continuity, as I mentioned before. Again, all of those are in the description below. The next one on the list is The Year Without a Santa Claus. This is the movie that introduces the Miser brothers, Snow Miser and Heat Miser, who are later in the Miser Brothers Christmas special, which will be mentioned later. Anyway, the plot summary for the movie is Santa gets sick, so Mrs. Claus gets to take an active role in an adventure. Set in a time where people are starting to doubt the existence of Santa, Mrs. Claus tries to prove there's still some Christmas spirit left in the world. Some continuity notes about this is it introduces Jingle and Jangle, who are two of Santa's head elves. The character designs and clothing for these characters become the de facto elf uniforms in all later specials and retcon callbacks, which are different from the Santa-style red and white outfits the Kringle elves are originally seen wearing in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. So, why they have difference in the elf costumes, no one really knows, but I have a theory for that which I'll bring up later. The next movie on the list is Frosty the Snowman. Now, what's interesting about this is Santa's voiced by a different person. It's Paul Frees instead of Mickey Rooney. It's a completely new design, despite the fact that it is the same Santa, because obviously there's only one Santa. he only has 4 reindeer here, so maybe like he takes this alternate sleigh or something. I don't know. And the big thing though that you'll know is that the animation style is different. The other ones have been claymation, but this one is a standard cartoon. But it's the Frosty the Snowman cartoon you've all seen before, I'm sure. So anyway, I'll say the story, despite the fact that you know it. It introduces Frosty, a snowman who comes to life with the aid of a magic hat and becomes good friends with a gang of children. To avoid melting at the end of winter, he decides to move up to the North Pole with the aid of a kid named Karen and Hocus Pocus the Rabbit. And that's just a shortened description of it. Obviously, I'm sure you know the story of Frosty the Snowman. So, the next movie in the list is Frosty's Winter Wonderland. Remember that Frosty the Snowman movie I mentioned earlier, where Jack Frost is the bad guy? Well, here it is, Frosty's Winter Wonderland. This is a sequel most people don't know about because they're used to the Frosty Returns sequel, which is the only one that's ever released with the Frosty the Snowman on DVD for whatever reason. So the plot of this one is Frosty grows bored of living up in the North Pole, so he heads back to town to visit his friends, the nameless children, because they really don't have names. Anyway, since Frosty gets lonely when the kids go into their warm homes each night, they decide to build him a snow wife. All this attention on the magical snow folks makes Jack Frost jealous until he's asked to join the wedding party. Now, here's what's weird about this. First of all, as I mentioned, Jack Frost is the bad guy. I mean, the description just makes it sound like he's jealous, so I could see that happening. But like, there's a certain extent to it where it's like, okay, how is that the same Jack Frost? And the other thing is, Frosty comes back to visit his friends, but Karen isn't in this whatsoever. And Karen's the one who helped him, so I don't get how he's visiting his friends if Karen's not there. And she's not in Frosty Returns either. It's like they completely forget about the person he was going to come back to visit. But, oh well. Anyway, moving to the next film on the list, we have the one you've been waiting for, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So this was the first one they actually made, but of course I'm doing these in chronological order versus release order. If you want to find out release order, that's in the description below in the sources for this. So basically, here's the story of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He has a very shiny nose. If you've ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names, and they never let poor Rudolph join any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, "Rudolph with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" And then all the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, "Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you'll go down in history." Moving on to the next film on the list is Rudolph's Shiny New Year. So you know how I talked about at the beginning of this video 2 Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer sequels you didn't know existed? Well, yep, this is one of them. It's a New Year's special. However, this one's starting to get a little bit more well known because Freeform, which is the new version of ABC Family. Back when it was ABC Family, they used to air this every year in the past few years. And so basically what the plot of this is, Rudolph is asked by Father Time to go on a quest to track down the missing baby New Year. He travels through the archipelago of last year, which is islands where time remains frozen. Along the way, Rudolph meets Big Ben the Whale and a bunch of other interesting and sometimes uninteresting characters that have no connection to any of the other Christmas stories. Now remember how I said it was important to remember Nestor the long-eared donkey? Baby New Year, he has really big ears and people made fun of him, so it's pretty much the same with that. I don't know why they reused that. It makes sense why they used Rudolph for this, but I don't get why they redid the story. I'm not sure which one came first, but whichever one did, it makes no sense. But that's just me complaining. Anyway, moving on to the next Rudolph sequel, the threequel, we had Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. So you know how shared universes always have the big movie where all the characters come together? And that's what this would be. It's like the Avengers of the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer shared universe, which is also called the Rankin Bass universe, because Rankin Bass Productions is the company that made all of these. This full-length feature film was actually released in movie theaters, where the other ones really weren't. And so, Rudolph and Frosty, seen for the first time as a stop-motion puppet, which is impressive. They're established as good friends in this movie, and we meet his children, Chili and Millie, who are obviously the children of Crystal, who was the snow woman. Anyway, they all join the circus and get tricked by a dark wizard named Winterbolt who wants to overthrow Santa. So that's basically the plot of this. And also Jack Frost comes in later, so that's pretty cool too. It shows some callbacks to the original, a retcon with how Rudolph got his red nose. Winterbolt's almost like the Winter Warlock, except he's not the same character, which is never really explained, so I don't know why. But that was really the end of their universe, just that short series. However, there were some spin-offs. So the rest of these movies are the spin-offs, or movies that I'm not actually sure if they are in the official timeline, if they're in like a split universe, sort of like, let's say time travel was involved and the universe changed slightly, or if they're just like other productions the company made. It's really hard to fit them in the timeline, but I'm mentioning them just in case. So we have Frosty Returns, obviously. Then we also have The Cricket on the Hearth, First Christmas, The Stingiest Man in Town, The Leprechaun's Christmas Gold, The Legend of Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph and the Island of Misfit Toys, which I talked about earlier, A Miser Brothers Christmas. This is the one that I was talking about where the Miser Brothers are in their own movie. They're the ones that were introduced in The Year Without a Santa Claus. And some people even put The Little Drummer Boy and The Little Drummer Boy Book 2 in this quote-unquote alternate timeline, or just not connecting, and it's because of the fact that it doesn't fully fit in the universe, I guess. And also, we're talking about Nestor the Long-Eared Christmas Donkey, and he's not seen in either of the Little Drummer Boy movies, and that's because they I don't know why that is. He's just not featured in it. Also, Pinocchio's Christmas and 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. So those are really all the ones that no one's really sure if they connect or not, but like they could if you want them to. However, various ones have different continuity mistakes, but these movies themselves already had continuity issues. Again, links in the description for the sources of this. I hope you enjoyed that. Have a Merry Christmas. #Dead That At First, and have a really, really random day.